With the Aluxian resurgence destroyed, we thought we would have a break, but the Vanitas faction built up a heavy fortification in preparation for an invasion on Sparky's homeworld. In an attempt to support Sparky, my team continued executing long-distance strikes against the Vanitas homeworld of Garuda. Stranded behind a TEC blockade, I could do little else to support my ally. Unthwarted by my attempts, the Vanitas faction deployed their ultimate weapon, the Janakra, a Varestra-class Titan. The ferocity of such a weapon could single-handedly decimate an entire planet if given the chance. We had to start thinking faster if we wanted to survive. As Sparky fought back the Vasari threat, I continued to pummel the Vanitas homeworld with the Novolith cannon, hoping to split the Vasari fleet into a defensive stance. Our economies dwindled. Despite this, Sparky was able to begin construction on his only hope of survival, a Titan, the only true match to the Janakra. The construction of the Titan was slow, and the Vanitas focused their assault on the Titan foundry, hoping to stop construction before it was too late. Unable to inflict enough damage on the foundry, Sparky launched the Pyrania. Built to protect the Advent worlds, the Pyrania unleashed a deadly volley onto the Janakra. Sensing the challenge, the Janakra changed its focus towards the Advent Titan. A long and deadly battle ensued between the two adversaries. At the end of the clash, the Janakra realized its disadvantage. Turning tail, the Janakra slipped back into Vasari space. The Pyrania left to help repiece the broken Advent worlds. Meanwhile, the Czar and his fleet commenced guerrilla strikes against the remnants of the Aluxian resurgence. With the resurgence fleet blockading Mirren, there was no chance the Czar could aid his allies on the other side of the system. Many lives were lost during the struggle of Mirren. Among those who fought to the death was the dreadnought battlecruiser, the San Diego, captained by the Czar and Sparky's good friend Sean. The sacrifice made by these fine warriors would never be forgotten. The Vasari fleets again mobilized and pushed the Advent homeworld. Hoping to decimate their enemy once and for all, the Vasari were pushed back by the dedication of the Advent armies. Using the Pyrania as a plug against swarms of Vasari, Sparky fought viciously on the home front while the Czar focused his aggressions on the Vanitas faction from afar. Once again, the Czar assembled his fleet and charged to Mirren. The Tsar's strategy was to slowly pummel the TEC fleet until the resurgents were completely decimated. The Tsar always kept his eye on the enemy Titan, the Peresov, waiting for an opportunity to deal it a killing blow. But for then, no such opportunity would be present, and lives would be lost, wave after wave, on a strategy that might eventually fail. The Tsar had unleashed his own Titan, but the added firepower was not enough to quell the enemy forces. In addition, a new Kol class, the Fenro, fought valiantly alongside the Kiev. The battle turned for the worse, and the Fenro's captain decided to use his ship as a distraction, while the remainder of the fleet, including the Kiev and the new Titan Secundo, could escape back to Gromov. Despite heavy losses and waning faith from his subordinates, the Tsar ordered another assault on Mirren, and another, and another. Without taking back Mirren, there would be no hope for the faction. If the resurgence didn't rebuild, then the Tsar knew the Vanitas would walk in and crush the remaining allied planets. To lay down their weapons would mean to lay down their lives. All roads led to the same outcome, but with war, at least there could be hope for peace in the hearts of the Tsar's people, and faith in their futures. After the fight at Mirren, the Tsar and his fleet were greeted with grave news. Their Advent allies had fought bravely, but their defenses did not hold up. The Advent fleets had been shattered and their government upheaved. They were defeated. Soon the Visari would close in and control the remaining Advent as a slave state, and there was nothing the Tsar could do to assist the Advent refugees. Growing tired of the skirmishes at Mirren, the Tsar ordered one more strike. Building his fleet into a sizable force, he thrust forward onto Mirren. But this time, the censors were clean. The large TEC force occupying Mirren, save the Peresov, had disappeared. This time, however, a new contact appeared. The Janakra. The Advent defeat allowed the Visari the opportunity to refocus on the Tsar's forces. Unbeknownst to them, the resurgents had gone rogue and would attack anyone at Mirren on sight. With the two fleets locked in combat, eventually both fleets were whittled down to one Titan each. The Tsar seized the opportunity and began pushing back against the Peresov, finally finding its killing blow and wanting nothing more than to exploit it. With the Janakra in play, the Tsar finally had a chance at retribution, but the time for vengeance would have to wait. The captain of the Janakra was no fool. Pompous, yes, but he wouldn't easily sacrifice his crew unless he felt the cards were in his favor. While the Secundo battled the Janakra, the Kiev and the Mercano defended the forward outpost of Gromov from an ever-escalating pirate threat. Over time, the pirates had proven to be more than a thorn in the sides of the four factions. At some point, they would have to be removed, permanently. Sometime later, after the final battle of Mirren, the base at Gromov received a hostile phase signal. Once again, the Janakra made a presence and intended on decimating the Tsar's forward base. The enemy captain's ego had unknowingly forced him and his crew into a hornet's nest. The Tsar had used the time between battles to assemble a fleet larger than anything he had ever fielded. With one goal, the fleet would push from planet to planet, systematically destroying all who opposed the Tsar and attempting to unify the Lost Worlds under one banner. With such a sizable force before the Janakra, the captain made the decision to flee back to the Visari worlds. The Tsar knew quite well that to leave the Visari Titan intact would mean that no end would come to the hostilities in the system. Letting the Janakra go was not an option. Chased from system to system, the Tsar hunted down the Janakra. The Tsar would not stop until the Titan was no more. With the enemy Titan destroyed, little could stop the Tsar and his quest against the Visari. The forward base at Cassini would be but the first stepping stone to victory. During the campaign, the Kiev and her crew were recognized as an exemplary unit. The crew received an award for their hard efforts and perseverance. Not long after the Battle of Cassini, the newly founded world of Lingus was attacked by a fleet of pirates. The Tsar remobilized, but not to engage the attacking force. Instead, he would strike the pirates' base on Rudra and wipe them out permanently. Once the pirates were defeated at the home base of Rudra, the only thing left to do was clean up the residual attackers at Lingus. The entirety of the Tsar's fleet phase jumped to the decimated world and sought to eliminate the last of the pirate fleets. The road was paved. The Aluxian government was no more. The pirates were defanged, and the Vanitas faction had lost the majority of their fleets. With the loss of his Advent allies and countless TEC pilots and captains weighing heavily on his mind, the Tsar wondered if any of it would make sense. Pushing forward, he would explore the remaining planets in search of the Vanitas homeworld, exploit the natural resources he found throughout his campaign, expand his fleets into an unstoppable force, and finally, with great eagerness, exterminate the last of the Vanitas faction.